Welcome to my channel. I'm Scott, and in this video I'm going to walk you through the process of valuing Sanofi stock by analyzing their financial statements and dissecting their financial ratios so we can determine if it's a buy or a sell. Let's get started with the model. This is a large cap company, 137 billion market cap. They're trading at $56 a share, and they have 2.4 billion shares outstanding. Sanofi researches, develops, manufactures, and markets pharmacological products, mainly in the prescription market, but it also develops over-the-counter medications. Let's look at their financials. The way you value a company is you estimate the free cash flows into the future, and then you discount those numbers back to today's value. That's what we're doing in this video. And free cash flow is cash flow from operations minus capital expenditures. Free cash flow goes down every year from 9.2 billion to 9.1 billion, only 1% drop. Then in 2023, a 13% drop to 8 billion. Then in 2024, a 20% drop to 6.4 billion. Not a good trend. Margins are going down as well from 22% to 13%. Free cash flow margin is a percent of your revenue that you convert to free cash flow. Net income is a profit or loss on the income statement. It's revenue minus expenses. That peaks in 2022 at 9 billion, all the way down to 6 billion in 2024. Revenue is a sales for the company, and that doesn't go up too much, from 42 billion to 48 billion. Pretty modest growth, especially during a hyper-growth stage like 2021 to 2024. They do pay a really nice dividend, 3.65%, which cost them $5 billion. Since they have 6.4 billion of free cash flow, they can cover the dividend 1.3 times, 130%. We estimated 4 years of future free cash flows. We also estimated the terminal value, which is all cash flows past year 4, that's 173 billion. We discounted those numbers back to today using the weighted average cost of capital. We get a value of the company of $154 billion. We divide that by 2.4 billion shares. And we get a calculated stock price of $63. They're trading at $56, so they're trading at 11% discount. It's a buy according to the model. There are 18 companies in the same industry as Sanofi, and if they have a number in red, they're worse than the median. If they have a number in blue, they're better. They spend 1.8 billion in capex, which is a little less than the average. Novo Nordisk spends the most at 6.6 billion. Novo Nordisk created Ozempic and Wegovy. I'm sure you're familiar with those weight loss drugs. They have a good debt to equity ratio, 0.2 for every dollar of equity, 20 cents of debt. Look at AbbVie, 20, very leveraged. They pay a 3.7% dividend, which is less than the median. Look at Pfizer, 8.4%. Why do they pay such a high dividend? Why are people not buying the stock? Pfizer has come down a lot. Lilly is number one by far, almost double Johnson & Johnson. Their price to book looks good. They're trading at 1.7 times book value, trading at 25 times earnings, which is pretty close to the median, better than the average. They're trading at 23 times free cash flow, a little better than the average. And they're trading at 3 times revenue, which is better than the median average. They generate a lot of revenue, 44 billion, which is equal to the median, pretty much exactly half Johnson & Johnson. They're close to 90 billion. So why does Johnson & Johnson generate twice the revenue as Eli Lilly, but Johnson & Johnson is exactly half the size? Because investors look towards the future, and the future looks bright according to investors. Their 5-year annual revenue growth rate is only 2%. Novo Nordisk is 17%, and the stock price is 56. The 52-week high is 59, only 8% off the 52-week high, 20% above the 52-week low. If you put $10,000 into this company 10 years ago and reinvested the dividends, you'd have $16,600 today, a 66% return, a 5% annual return. To summarize, I have them trading at 11% discount. I give them a ranking of 6 out of 10. I'd probably buy it short term, 6 out of 10. I'm more likely to hold it long term, 7 out of 10. Ratios are a little better than the average, so 6 out of 10. Financials, 3 out of 10. They don't look so great. Free cash flow is going down each year. Revenue is up only 13% since 2021. Here's their income statement. All their numbers are in euros. Euros are really close to US dollars. They used to be further apart. I think at one point a couple years ago, it was equal. 1 euro equals 1 US dollar. Now 1 euro equals 1.08 US dollars. Here's their revenue. It was 38 billion euros in 2022, so about, I guess, 40 billion US dollars. 38 billion again in 2023, 41 billion in 2024. I wonder if they give a breakdown of the revenue. Before we get a breakdown, they also show other revenue, 3.2 billion. So their total revenue is about 44.4 billion. Of the 41 billion of revenue, 9 billion is in Europe, 20 billion in the US, 12 billion in all the other countries. And they do give a breakdown. Immunology is 13 billion, 9.5 billion in the US. Immunology is a study of the immune system. We want to have a strong immune system to protect us from things like the cold or other diseases. They do give a breakdown of the different drugs. A lot of them are hard to say. Neurology, that's the brain, that's 379 million euros. Oncology, the study of cancer, 470 million. Vaccines, those are big. Influenza, 2.6 billion. Polio, 2.7 billion. Other income, the 3.2 billion. VaxServe, that's 2 billion. That's the bulk of it. So their sales increased 8.6% from 2023. And that's driven by strong performances for Dupixent and increased sales in Altuviiio, Lantus, and Beyfortus. Here's a really full breakdown by product. Total sales is right here in the leftmost column, 41 billion. Lantus is 1.6 billion. Fabrazyme, 1 billion. Dupixent is the big one, 13 billion. To give you a little info on Dupixent, it works by blocking proteins called interleukins. And these proteins are part of the immune system and are involved in causing inflammation. By blocking these proteins, the drug reduces inflammation in your body and can help ease your symptoms. Dupixent is not a steroid. It's a human monoclonal antibody that inhibits the signaling of IL-4 and IL-13. Those are two types of cytokines that contribute to the type 2 inflammation in atopic dermatitis. Medical insurance covers this drug in almost all cases, so the cost is pretty low. And some people stay on this drug up to 3 years. Here's a breakdown of the sales of Dupixent. In the US, 9.5 billion, Europe, 1.6 billion, rest of the world, 1.9 billion. So it's up 50% in the rest of the world. Let's go back to the income statement. Below revenue is cost of revenue. These are all the expenses directly tied to generating the revenue, 13 billion. Revenue minus cost of revenue gives you the gross profit, 31 billion. Their margins are 76%. That means they convert 76% of their revenue into gross profit. R&D is their biggest expense, 7.4 billion. That's 18% of their revenue. SG&A, that includes marketing, 9.2 billion. That's 22% of their revenue. Operating income is gross profit minus operating expenses. So it's 7.3 billion, 18% operating margin. They spent 1.1 million of interest on their debt. Pre-tax income 6.7 billion, 1.2 billion of taxes, so their net income 5.6 billion. And here's their shares outstanding, 1.25 billion. So earnings per share is net income over shares outstanding, 444, 4.44 euros. Let's take a look at the company on Simply Wall Street. Its last price 56, 137 billion market cap. It is down 2% in the past week, although up 15% in the past year. If we go back to 2002, the stock was around $30 a share. Its low point was 1 year later in 2003. It fell to a little over 23. It trades in a pretty tight range. It doubled from 2003 to 2006, getting close to $50. It hasn't really increased too much since then. It hit close to 60 at some points. It looks like around the Great Recession 2008, it fell to below 30. But then it comes right back up. And it has these normal gyrations, especially when the market comes down. It looks like this stock comes down, but then it comes right back up. But you do get your consistent dividend. So I think that's the reason people like this company. Simply Wall Street's at 106. They say the stock is 47% undervalued. No analyst priced this stock. Here's their revenue since 2014. It was 33 billion euros. And it has gone up, but very little. Still in the low $30 billion range up through 2017. Then it gets into the high $30 billion range. Breaking through 40 billion in 2022. It came down a little here, back up, back down. The peak was 48 billion in September 2024, but it's down a little bit, down to 44 billion currently. This is their revenue for all of 2024. Here's their debt since 2014. It was 14 billion. The peak was almost 30 billion in 2018, but they have brought it down. It came down to 16 billion at the end of 2023, up to 24 billion, back down to 16 billion. They have to fund those acquisitions, but their equity is always a lot higher than their debt, and the equity has gone up overall. Currently 78 billion of equity, 16 billion of debt, so debt to equity ratio is 20%. And they do have plenty of cash on their balance sheet to service the debt, 7.6 billion of cash. That's against 16 billion of debt. So about half their debt is in cash. Their dividend yield is pretty steady. It was 3.5% in 2015. It got to over 4% in 2018, but it has come down a little bit and then back up to over 4%. The forecast is 4.4% by 2027. They pay an annual dividend in May of each year. It was $1.09 in 2015, up to $1.37 in 2021. It looks like down here they may have paid a special dividend. That was also in May, only 18 cents though. Currently they're paying $1.48. We're getting close to May, so they should be announcing the dividend soon if they haven't already. The CEO's salary went up a lot, 400,000 euros in 2019. Now it's 1.4 million. Total compensation 10 million, tenure CEO 5.5 years. 56% of the companies owned by institutions, 34% by the general public, 7% by public companies, and 3% in their employee plan, their employee scheme. In the US, we don't call it a scheme, we call it ESPP, Employee Stock Purchase Plan. It's the same thing. I think this is a European thing, the word scheme. Their biggest shareholders, BlackRock 7.5%, L'Oreal 7.24%. That's the world's largest cosmetic company. The Norwegian bank Norges owns 2% of the company, BNY 0.6%, and Federated Hermes 0.39%. Their employee count has gone down. It was 112,000 in 2014. Now it's 83,000. And the ticker trades on the OTC pink sheets, Euronext Paris, Deutsche Börse, London Stock Exchange, Borsa Italiana, the Xetra Bats Europe, Wiener Börse, Mexican Bolsa, Bulgaria, the NASDAQ, and last but not least, the Stock Exchange of Thailand. So if you want a copy of my discounted cash flow model, click on the video in the top right corner.